You cannot walk into a new future while dragging the corpse of your old self behind you. The person you were yesterday, with all their doubts, excuses, and missed opportunities for the remainder of life, has served their time. You must understand that transformation is not a gentle shift, it is a deliberate act of destruction. For the habits that once kept you comfortable are the same ones that now keep you caged. You must sever every tie to the mindset that accepted mediocrity as fate. Leave behind the life that was built on hesitation and fear, for it cannot carry you into the vision you hold for yourself. There is no retreat, only forward. For the remainder of your life, to build the life you deserve, you must decide exactly what that life looks like. Too many wander through existence without a clear image of where they're going, and as a result, for they accept whatever comes. You must craft your vision in vivid detail. How you will live, how you will feel, what kind of impact you will make. Your mind cannot chase shadows for the remainder of your life. It must chase a picture so real that it burns in your imagination day and night. Once you see it clearly, you will begin to move toward it, often without realizing the small but powerful decisions you are making along the way. Taking full responsibility is the first act of the new self. For your life, the old you waited for the right time, the right opportunity, or the right person to make life better. The new you knows no one is coming to save you. The moment you stop blaming circumstances, luck, or the past is the moment you step into true power. This ownership is not about guilt. It is about control for the remainder of your life. When you declare that everything in your life is a result of your choices, you also declare that everything ahead will be shaped by your choices. For the remainder of your life, change cannot happen in stagnant surroundings. If you keep standing in the same environment that nurtured your limitations, you will find yourself repeating the same patterns. Seek out people who challenge you, who have already reached where you want to go, and who will not allow you to settle for less than your potential. If you cannot find that circle, create it. Fill your mind with voices, books, and ideas that pull you upward. Your environment is a mirror. If it shows a smaller version of yourself, it is time to break the glass. Discipline is the bridge between vision and reality. Motivation fades as quickly as it arrives, but discipline remains steady through all seasons. For the remainder of your life, the old self only when inspired, the new self works because the work must be done. Every day, for the remainder of your life, you are either building the life you deserve or strengthening the life you are trying to leave behind. Small daily actions, performed with unwavering consistency, will accumulate into results so powerful they will shock even you. And when you begin to see progress, protect your new identity as if it were a precious flame in a storm. In the early stages, it will be vulnerable to the winds of doubt, the whispers of old habits, and the opinions of those who fear your growth. Guard it fiercely. For the remainder of your life, each day you choose to live as the person you are becoming, you strengthen that identity until it is unshakable. One day, you will look back and realize that your old self is nothing more than a distant memory, and you will stand firmly in the life you have built. The life you truly deserve. A vague dream produces vague results. If your vision for life is nothing more than a blurry outline, your actions will lack the precision and energy required to make it real. You cannot aim at a shadow and expect to hit the target. You must be willing to sit with yourself, away from the noise, and ask the most uncomfortable but necessary questions. Yunes, what do I truly want? What do I want to become? What will my days look like when I am living at my highest potential? The clearer you make this picture, for the more your mind will begin to treat it not as a wish, but as an inevitable destination. Clarity is power, and it begins in the mind. For of your life, when you write down your goals and describe them in vivid detail, you are programming your subconscious to work for you, even when you are not consciously thinking about them. For the remainder of your life, imagine your life so clearly that you can see the colors, hear the sounds, and feel the emotions of living it. When you wake up, that vision should be the first image in your mind, and when you go to sleep, it should be the last thing you see. A vision rehearsed this deeply becomes more than fantasy. It becomes instruction to your entire being, the remainder of your life. This mental picture must be more real to you than your current circumstances. Your present life is just a reflection of past choices, but your future life is a canvas waiting for your hand. When you allow your imagination to pull you forward, the weight of your present struggles begins to feel lighter. The person who can see the mountaintop will endure the climb without complaint because the view in their mind is already worth the effort. Your old self was blind to possibility. Your new self sees nothing but it. Once you see it clearly, the pursuit becomes fierce. Vague dreams invite hesitation, but crystal clear visions demand action. For the remainder of your life, you will start making decisions that align with the life you see, often without overthinking. The foods you eat, the people you spend time with, the way you use your time, all will start to shift naturally when they are measured against the image of your ideal life. You will begin to recognize distractions for what they are. For the remainder of your life, these stealing pieces of your vision. A clear picture also creates resilience. Life will test you, but when you know exactly where you're going, temporary setbacks won't stop you. They will simply be detours. You will find ways around obstacles because the image of your future is too precious to abandon. The clearer the vision, the stronger your will to fight for it. Clarity turns I hope into I will, and maybe into must. Your old self survived on vague wishes, of your new self thrives on vivid, undeniable visions. This shift in mental focus is the first step to building the life you deserve. The more clearly you can see it, for the remainder of your life, the more fiercely you will move toward it until one day you wake up and realize the life in your mind has become the life in your hands. For your life, the old self was a master of waiting, waiting for the perfect moment, for the right opportunity, for someone to open a door and invite them through. Days turned into weeks, weeks into years, and still nothing changed because waiting has never built anything. This is the trap of relying on luck or chance. It gives away your power. For the remainder of life, when you tell yourself that life will get better, when things change, you are silently admitting that you are not in control. That belief kept the old self stuck in the same patterns, hoping for a rescue that would never come. The truth is that nothing changes until you do. Your life is a direct reflection of your decisions, your habits, and your willingness to take action. When you choose to change, the world around you begins to respond. For the remainder of your life, opportunities that once seemed hidden reveal themselves not because they suddenly appeared, but because your new mindset allows you to see them. For the remainder of your life, this is the power of personal transformation. Changing yourself changes the lens through which you experience everything else. Taking complete ownership is not about blaming yourself for every problem. It is about reclaiming control over your future. The moment you stop pointing fingers at circumstances for the remainder of your life, at people of the past, you step into the driver's seat of your own destiny. This shift is liberating. You are no longer at the mercy of what life gives you. You decide what you will create. Responsibility is the foundation of freedom because once you claim it, you hold the tools to build something better. When you accept that your results are the outcome of your own actions, you also accept that you have the power to choose new actions. For the remainder of your life, this awareness destroys the helplessness that the old self clung to. You start asking different questions, not why is this happening to me, but what can I do about it? That change in focus rewires your thinking. Problems become challenges. Challenges become opportunities. And opportunities become the stepping stones to the life you've envisioned. This is the turning point between the old self and the new one. For the remainder of your life, the old self was a passenger drifting wherever the current carried them. The new self takes the wheel for the remainder of life, aware that storms will come, but knowing they have the power to steer through them. For the remainder of your life, the day you stop waiting for someone else to change your life and decide to change it yourself is the day you begin to live on your own terms. For that is the moment the journey toward the life you deserve truly begins. You cannot rise while standing in the same soil that grew your limitations. The surroundings that shaped the old you are infused with the same patterns, the same reminders, the same silent agments that kept you small. When you remain in that soil, your roots will keep finding the same familiar boundaries. The air you breathe, the conversations you hear, for the routines you follow, all of these things either feed your growth or feed your stagnation. If nothing around you challenges the limits you've accepted for the remainder of your life, those limits will stay in place like invisible walls. The people you spend the most time with shape your thinking more than you realize. If you are surrounded by those who settle for less, you will feel the unspoken pressure to lower your own ambitions. Not because they are bad people, but because they reflect what is normal in that environment. Normal is contagious. The new self must actively seek out people whose standards are higher, whose expectations are sharper, and whose actions force you to raise your own game. Being in their presence will stretch you in ways that comfort never can. Places carry energy too. The old haunts, the familiar streets, the spaces where you once wasted time or numbed your dreams, these are not neutral. They remind you of who you used to be. If your surroundings constantly pull you back into the identity you are trying to shed, you must be willing to step into new places that match the life you are building. Sometimes this means traveling to new environments, and sometimes it means transforming the space you already have into one that inspires action instead of passivity. Information is part of your environment as well. What you read, watch, and listen to plant seeds in your mind. The old self consumed whatever was easy, entertaining, or familiar, without realizing that each piece of information was shaping beliefs and expectations. The new self is intentional about what enters their mind. Books, podcasts, conversations, and learning opportunities become tools for construction, not distractions from it. You feed your mind with what aligns with the future you are creating. If you cannot find this kind of environment, you must create it. Start with small, deliberate changes. A corner of your room dedicated to focused work. For the remainder of your life, a voice to voices that challenge you, a daily routine that removes you from unproductive influences. For the remainder of your life, build spaces and connections that reinforce your new identity until they feel natural. The environment you create becomes a silent partner in your growth, constantly reminding you of the person you are becoming. Changing your environment is not about abandoning everything or everyone from your past. It's about refusing to let yesterday's conditions dictate tomorrow's results. The old self was shaped by its surroundings without question. The new self shapes the surroundings to serve its vision. Once your environment begins to reflect the life you deserve, for the remainder of your life, it becomes much harder to fall back into the life you have outgrown. Your thoughts are the silent architects of your reality. Every action you take, every decision you make begins first as a thought. The old self lived without guarding that space, allowing any stray idea, fear, or limitation to take root. It is no wonder the results mirrored the chaos of the mind. The new self understands that the mind is a construction site, and only blueprints that serve the vision should be allowed. If the wrong plans are drawn, the wrong life will be built, brick by brick, without even realizing it for the remainder of your life. The words you say to yourself matter more than the words anyone else says to you. The old self repeated silent sentences like, I can't, I'm not ready, or that's impossible, until those statements became unquestioned truths. But the truth is not fixed, it is shaped by belief. Replacing I can't with I will is not just motivational fluff, it is the rewiring of the brain. When you tell yourself, I am preparing now, you shift from a passive role to an active one. Your thoughts become instructions to your body, and your actions begin to follow for the remainder of your life. Guarding your mind means being aware of what you allow in. Every conversation you engage in, every headline you read, every opinion you accept without examination is planting something in your mental soil. The old self let weeds grow freely, assuming they were harmless. The new self weeds the garden daily, pulling out fear, doubt, and negativity before they choke out progress. Protecting your mind is not about isolation. It's about cultivation. You decide what gets to stay because you understand what you are trying to grow. Belief is not built overnight. It is forged through repetition and proof. At first, for the remainder of your life, telling yourself, I will succeed, may feel like a lie if your current reality doesn't reflect it. But the mind does not know the difference between imagination and reality. It only responds to what it is fed consistently. Feed it belief long enough, and it begins to accept it. As belief strengthens, your behavior shifts. You work harder, take bolder steps, and carry yourself with a quiet certainty. That certainty starts creating results, and those results reinforce the belief. It becomes a cycle that works in your favor. The old self was a prisoner of doubt, reacting to life instead of directing it. Doubt whispered reasons to stop, to wait, to lower expectations. The new self becomes a general of belief, issuing commands to the mind that align with the vision of the future. A general does not ask if the battle can be won. They decide it will be, and then act accordingly. This mindset turns challenges into strategies and obstacles into missions. In the end, For the remainder of your life, mastering your mind is the foundation for mastering your life. Everything you want to create must first be built in thought before it can exist in reality. When your inner world is disciplined, focused, and filled with the right instructions, the outer world eventually has no choice but to reflect it. For the remainder of your life, the life you deserve will not be an accident. It will be the inevitable result of thoughts guarded like treasure and directed with intention. A dream without a date is like a ship without a destination. It may drift for years and still arrive nowhere. The old self mistook vague hope for direction, telling itself that one day things would be different without ever deciding when that day would come. But without a clear time frame, the mind has no urgency and life has no focus. The moment you put a deadline on a goal, you transform it from a fantasy into a commitment. You draw a line in time and say, by this date, I will have done it. And that declaration forces action. Deadlines create pressure, and pressure is the forge where progress is made. Without it, the old self would always choose comfort over growth, postponing the work with the illusion that there will always be more time. The new self understands that urgency is a gift, for when you underwrite, you know the clock is ticking, you act differently. You cut out distractions, you make decisions faster, and you find solutions instead of excuses. For life, the ticking clock becomes a constant reminder that your time is not infinite, and neither is the opportunity in front of you. But setting a deadline is not enough. You must break it into daily actions. The vision of your goal may be grand, but the work is built from small, consistent steps. Every day becomes a brick, and every brick strengthens the structure of your future. The old self looked at mountain and froze, overwhelmed by its size. The new self looks at the mountain and focuses only on the next step, knowing that each step is progress, no matter how small it seems in the moment. Consistency turns the impossible into the inevitable. A fortress is not built in a day. It is built by showing up, even when progress feels invisible. Some days will bring big wins. Others will bring quiet labor that no one notices, but both are essential. The old self abandoned the work when results didn't come quickly enough. The new self trusts the process, knowing that persistence guarantees completion if the plan is clear and the deadline is firm. A deadline also forces clarity in priorities. Once you know when something must be done, for the remainder of your life, you begin to see what is essential and what is a distraction. You stop saying yes to everything that demands your attention and start saying yes only to what moves you forward. For the remainder of your life, this discipline not only accelerates progress, but reshapes your entire way of living, making every choice intentional. For the remainder of your life, when you commit to goal with a deadline and follow through with daily actions, you stop living in the realm of wishes and step into the realm of achievement. Each brick laid is proof to yourself that capable of building the life you envision. Over time, the fortress rises, not from bursts of inspiration, but from disciplined, for the remainder of focused effort that transforms a dream into something you can see, touch, and live. For the motivation is like a spark. It can ignite you in the moment, but it fades quickly if it is not fed. The old self lived on bursts of inspiration, waiting to feel ready before taking action. That is why progress was inconsistent and results were unreliable. Discipline, on the other hand, is the steady flame that keeps burning no matter the weather. It is not dependent on how you feel in the moment. It is built on the decision to act whether you feel like it or not. For the new self understands that feelings are temporary, but principles are permanent. Doing the work when you are inspired is easy. Doing the work when you are tired, discouraged, or distracted is where transformation happens. The old self bowed to emotions, letting moods dictate momentum. If it felt motivated, it moved. If it didn't, it stalled. For the remainder, the new self removes emotion from the equation, focusing only on what must be done. This shift turns every day into an opportunity to prove to yourself that you're in control, not your excuses, not your comfort, not your fleeting moods. Discipline is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows stronger through repeated use. You start small, showing up for the task even when it's inconvenient. Over time, that commitment becomes instinct. You no longer do it with yourself, you simply act. The old self wasted energy negotiating with its own laziness, while the new self conserves energy by eliminating the debate entirely. There is no, should I? There is only, I will. Every act of discipline compounds. A single day of commitment may seem insignificant. for the remainder of your life, but string together 100 such days and you will see a transformation so profound it will feel like a different life. The old self sought quick results and lost patience when they didn't appear immediately. The new self understands that the visible payoff comes later, but the invisible growth is happening now. The habits you practice today are silently shaping the person you will be 6 months, a year, even a decade from now. Discipline also builds trust, not with others, but with yourself. When you keep promises to yourself day after day, you strengthen your belief that you can rely on you. If that trust is powerful, it removes doubt when you set a new goal because you already know you will follow through. The old self broke its own word too many times, eroding self-confidence. The new self treats self-promises as sacred contracts, unbreakable under any circumstances. In the end, motivation may start the journey, but only discipline can finish it. The old self lived by feelings which rise and fall like waves. The new self lives by principles which stand like rock. For the remainder of your life, when you anchor yourself to discipline, you stop waiting for the right moment and start creating the results you want, one consistent action at a time. For every obstacle carries within it the seed of transformation, but the way you respond determines whether it becomes a barrier or a stepping stone. The old self saw problems as proof that life was unfair, using them as justification to slow down or give up. Every setback became a reason to shrink. For the new self understands that adversity is not a signal to retreat, but an invitation to grow. It asks the question, how can I use this? And begins to search for the lesson, for the hidden advantage, or the strength waiting to be developed. Pain is one of life's most honest teachers. The old self avoided it at all costs, mistaking discomfort for danger. But avoiding pain also meant avoiding growth. The new self sees pain as proof of progress, a sign that something inside is stretching beyond its limits. For the remainder, every hardship forces you to dig deeper, to develop resilience you didn't know you had. Over time, pain becomes less of an enemy and more of an ally. It shows you exactly where your weaknesses are so you can turn them into strengths. Rejection, too, is often misunderstood. For the remainder of your life, the old self took rejection as a verdict, believing it meant unworthiness or failure. It used rejection as a reason to stop trying. The new self sees rejection as redirection, an opportunity to change course towards something better suited, more aligned, and more rewarding. Often, what is denied you today is simply making room for something far greater tomorrow. What feels like a door closing is sometimes just life pointing you toward the right one. Failure is another tool the old self feared. It treated failure as a final chapter, proof that the dream was impossible. The new self treats failure as education, each mistake a lesson on what to improve, what to adjust, and what to avoid next time. Failure sharpens strategy and deepens understanding. The more you fail, the more skilled you become because each attempt brings you closer to mastery. The difference between those who crumble under adversity and those who thrive in it is perspective. For the old self saw struggle as punishment, the new self sees it as preparation. Every obstacle becomes raw material for the life you are building. For the remainder of your life, challenges are no longer interruptions to your progress. They are part of the process. For the remainder of your life, the very weight that once threatened to crush you becomes the resistance that builds your strength. In time, adversity stops feeling like an intruder and starts feeling like an old companion, one that keeps you sharp, focused, and ready. When you train yourself to see obstacles this way, for the remainder, nothing can truly stop you. The world can take away resources, comfort, and certainty, but it cannot take away the mindset that turns every setback into fuel. For the remainder of your life, and when you live with that mindset, the life you deserve is no longer a possibility. It becomes inevitable. The old self waited for perfect conditions, believing that success would only come when every detail was aligned and every uncertainty was resolved. Days were spent planning, researching, and imagining what could be, but little was actually done. This search for the right time was really a disguise for fear, a way to delay the risk of failing. The truth is, perfect conditions never arrive. Life will always offer reasons to wait, but waiting only guarantees that the dream stays a dream. The new self understands that progress is what creates confidence, not the other way around. You do not wait to feel ready before acting, you act, and in doing so, you become ready. Action turns fear into experience, and experience turns uncertainty into skill. The first step is always the hardest, for the remainder of life, but it is also the most powerful because it shatters the illusion that you must have everything figured out before you begin. Starting before you feel prepared forces you to grow in real time. It demands resourcefulness, adaptability, and creativity. You learn to adjust on the move for the remainder of life, to find solutions in the middle of the challenge instead of from the safety of the sidelines. The old self feared making mistakes, for the new self understands that mistakes made in motion are better than perfection imagined in stillness. Every misstep becomes a part of the training. For leaping first and figuring it out along the way is not recklessness, it is trust. It is trusting your ability to adapt, to learn, and to build as you go. For the remainder of your life, it is knowing that you are capable of finding the tools you need once you're in the arena. The moment you step into action, the opportunities, connections for the remainder of your life, and resources that were invisible from the starting line begin to appear. None of them would have revealed themselves if you were still waiting. The old self thought courage was the absence of fear, but the new self knows courage is moving forward despite fear. It is feeling the pounding heart, the uncertainty, and the doubts, yet taking the step anyway. With each action, fear loses its hold. The more you move, the less fear controls you until one day you no longer need to convince yourself. You simply act. In the end, readiness is not a state you reach before beginning. It is a state you create by beginning. You leap, you stumble, you adjust, and you grow wings on the way down. And when you finally land, you realize the ground you feared so much was never as far away as you thought. For the old self waits for life to signal. Go, go. The new self understands the signal is yours to give, and the life you deserve begins the moment you decide to take the jump. Transformation is most vulnerable in its early stages. The old self may be gone in intention, but its shadows still linger in habits, temptations, and familiar patterns. In the beginning, it takes very little to pull you back. One old routine, one familiar voice, one moment of doubt. That is why the new self must be fiercely protected. Change is like a young flame. It burns bright but can be extinguished by the slightest wind if you are not careful. You must guard it until it grows strong enough to withstand storms. For the remainder of the voices around you will not all support your transformation. Some will doubt you, not because they understand your limits, but because they are afraid of what your growth says about their own choices. Others may try to pull you back in the version of yourself they are comfortable with because your new self makes them uncomfortable. This is not about malice, it is about familiarity. People often prefer the old you because it fits their expectations. Protect your new identity by surrounding yourself with those who respect it, encourage it, and push it forward. Old habits will try to creep back in quietly. They are comfortable, familiar, and deceptively easy to slip into. One skipped commitment turns into two. One moment of laxness grows into a week of inaction. For the old self doesn't return all at once. It slips in through small cracks. Guarding new self means staying alert to those cracks and sealing them before they widen. It means holding yourself accountable when no one is watching and remembering that each small choice is a vote for the person you want to be. Self-doubt will also test your resolve the remainder of your life. Even after you've made progress, there will be moments when you question whether you're truly capable of sustaining it. The old self thrived in those moments, using them as proof to stop trying. The new self treats doubt as background noise, a voice you acknowledge but do not obey. Each time you push through doubt and keep moving, for the remainder of life, you weaken its power. Over time, you learn to trust your ability to continue, no matter what that voice says, living each day as the new self reinforces the transformation until it becomes permanent. At first, it is a conscious effort, a daily decision to show up differently. But as you repeat it, the behavior becomes natural, and the old self feels foreign. You reach a point where going back would feel unnatural, even impossible, because you have lived too long in your new standard to accept the old one. Guarding your new identity is not a temporary task. It is a lifelong commitment. Every day you choose to live in alignment with your vision, you strengthen the foundation of the life you are building. And one day, you will realize the old self is not just dead, it is unrecognizable. What remains is a life shaped entirely by your own hands, built with intention, discipline for the remainder of your life, and the courage to protect what matters most, the person you have become and the life you truly deserve.